brother. What's up?
This is a
Hey, how you
groovy
doing?
party, man.
Yeah,
I
brother.
can
Like,
dig it.
solid. Right on.
Hey, man, what's your name? Everything is everything.
Get down today, boy, I tell you.
Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother,
Good morning and welcome to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. That's 844-967-2789. You can text us at that same number. Good morning to you, Luke. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Earl. We got an interesting morning going on here. State of Wisconsin and around the world.
Yeah,
Really.
Sandy Williams is back. Oh,
Yeah,
you don't mean that.
That's it, too.
Oh, well,
We like
it's-
Sandy.
Well, it's Tuesday, and that means Tuesdays with my co-host Sandy Williams. Sandy, how you doing? Can't hear you.
Whoop.
All right.
I'm back from a couple of days in Utah, where I've got my father's family came from Utah long ago, and I've got thousands of relatives in Utah.
So we'll get into all of that. There's breaking news, and so let's go right to none other than Terry Bell. Terry, how you doing, sir?
Good morning, Earl. It's good to be with you.
All right. What's the breaking news?
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris has chosen her running mate, so we have that slate set, and he is Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. And now the race is on between the two tickets now that Vice President Harris has chosen her running mate. Walz is 60 years old. He emerged as a dark horse contender for the running mate slot as chatter over high-profile names. He beat out people like Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, and Mark Kelly, the U.S. Senator of Arizona. They were talked about a lot lately, and I'm quoting from The Hill here, Walz saw his profile go up quite a bit in the last week. Cable news interview he gave, the line about Republicans being weird, well, that comes from Walz. So he's seen his profile go up quite a bit in the last week or so. Walz was also seen by a lot of people as a safer choice for Harris, thanks to his liberal bona fides, the fact that some other contenders had come under fire from segments to the left. Shapiro was getting criticized in his response to pro-Palestinian protests, and Kelly, the union leaders were not a big fan of Kelly, so it seemed like Walz was the safe choice. There was also some speculation then when Eau Claire was chosen as the location for tomorrow's rally that it might be Walz, because Eau Claire, even though it's in western Wisconsin, is very much an extension of Minnesota's Twin Cities. A lot of people live in one place and work in the other. Minnesota media dominates in that part of the state. So it seemed like when Eau Claire was chosen, that might have been a bit of a tip that Walz was the running mate.
Well, you know, when you talk about independence, and I guess that clearly plays a role in, you know, why this decision was made. I guess he seemed to be a little more moderate and, you know, palatable.
Well, I don't know. Actually, I think he's viewed as a little bit more of a little more of a progressive than Shapiro. But I think his personality is one that fits very well with middle America, meaning middle class America as well as middle America, and he has a big personality. I think he's going to be a really good candidate.
That's a good point, Sandy. He definitely checks off that Midwestern state box.
Well, you know, it's genie's out of the bottle now, and excitement has revved up even more. Is it safe to say that?
I think, you know, what we have seen and what polling has showed, and the Marquette poll is coming out this week too, I think as early as tomorrow. And early indications is that not only has Kamala Harris closed the polling gap with Donald Trump, but she has also closed the enthusiasm gap. The Democrats are as enthusiastic about Kamala Harris as Republicans have been about Donald Trump for many months now.
Yeah, well, you know, the difference is there's still Republicans who aren't as excited about Donald Trump. They, you know, and, you know, he's got a certain percentage of Republicans who still don't agree with him, still don't support him. I think, on the other hand, Kamala Harris just about has total commitment from the Democratic Party. I think that makes
That's a
major
great point.
difference.
A lot of people, a lot of Republicans voted for another candidate besides Donald Trump in the Wisconsin primary. So that goes straight to your point.
Well,
Absolutely. Earl.
Well, and also when you look at the attention, the attention process, okay, attention is now going to be still continuing on the Democratic ticket. Now there'll be a couple of weeks analysis of Tim Walz. The Republicans are going to be forced to generate attacks. So in other words, when your opposition is talking about you, they're actually kind of in a manner helping you. The spotlight stays on the Democratic ticket, and it will stay on the Democratic ticket, I think, for quite a long time. I think a lot of the pundits thought, I guess I agreed, that there would be a lot of attention, that the air would get sucked out of the attention being paid to Republicans as Republicans. Donald Trump's spotlight, the spotlight on Donald Trump, which he's been very good at maintaining, is not on him and will not be on him for, I think, a substantial number of weeks now. And the question I have in my mind is, what will he resort to try and get the spotlight back on him? Because he's not someone who appreciates being on the stage but not in the spotlight.
Well, I kind of wonder, man, why Republicans have been pushing for Kamala recently to debate J.D. Vance. Well, that's who she should be debating. Well, I think if J.D. Vance wants to debate Tim Walz, J.D. Vance is going to lose that debate handily.
Well, who knows? But I do think that we haven't seen Walz a lot, but what I've seen of Walz is that he's got a big personality, that he's a very confident, comfortable in his
well-spoken guy,
comfortable in his own skin kind of a guy. I think he was a teacher at one point in his background. I think he's going to be a very interesting. The vice presidential candidate is supposed to be a fire kind of a carry a lot of water and for the arguments, and I think it's going to be an effective choice.
All right, Terry, your thoughts as we get ready to wrap this up.
Well, things are going to get a lot interesting, and to go to the point about Trump talking about and the Trump ticket talking about the Democrats. Late yesterday, it was announced that J.D. Vance would in fact be in Eau Claire at the same time as the new Democratic ticket. And I suspect that this will be a tactic we'll see quite a bit this time around, that you're going to see J.D. Vance showing up in the same city as Harris rallies going forward. I think he's already doing it this week, and I think that's something they'll keep up.
Yeah, there are people who follow the Grateful Dead concerts too, but I'm not sure who gets the attention in that case. Huh?
All right, Terry, thank you very much. It's good seeing you, my friend.
You too, Earl. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, Sandy, it's in, and I will say this, J.D. Vance and talking about J.D. Vance and constantly, because I watch conservative outlets, and they're talking about the great J.D. Vance. I think that now
I think they're
Walz is going to kind of be a buffer.
I think they're trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, because I think J.D. Vance has laid a
loose cannon,
laid a real egg, and almost every time he opens his mouth, he's laid an egg. I thought he was a shrewd choice. I'm now looking at it as maybe being a great choice if you don't want that ticket to win. I think he's kind of a supercilious intellect who doesn't really have his finger on the pulse in the same manner that people thought he did.
Well, Sandy, I think part of this is, as you stated, now they don't just have Kamala Harris to attack solely. Prior to him, Walz coming on, they could attack solely Kamala Harris. They can't do that anymore. They've now got to focus some of that powder on the vice president.
Well, I think an interesting thing, before we got on the air, you were talking about Lindsey Graham trying to indicate that the Republicans have a personality problem in their party, but the Democrats have a policy problem. Well, you notice that he doesn't want to talk about Republican policies. He doesn't say that the Republicans have a policy advantage, because that would force him to lay out the Republican policies. He wants to just simply be an attack dog and attack Democratic policies, because the Democrats have been forthright enough to talk about the things they'd like to accomplish when they get elected. The Republicans simply have Donald Trump saying, whatever they want to do, I'm not going to do. Okay, so it's an anti-party, and the only policies that the Republicans can point at in the Trump administration are two: the border and his tax cut. And the tax cut was highly inflationary and probably led to the very situation that they then want to attack Joe Biden for and the Biden administration, which is inflation.
So are they going to be forced at any time to talk about policy?
Well, Donald Trump successfully avoids it 100% of the time, other than waving a magic wand and talking about things he's going to fix, talking about policies he's going to implement without any, the last election, he talked about the great health plan that he had. He held up a big, thick sheaf, a book that was filled with, I'm sure, blank pages or I don't know what. And there never was introduced any program associated with health care that was any sort of massive fix, okay? I think he did one thing during his administration that people can look at, which was the publication of hospital rates, and then that wasn't enforced.
You know, Sandy, we've kind of got this now settled. And our phone lines are open at 844-967-2789, as they always are. Your thoughts on the selection of Waltz, as the running mate for Kamala Harris. Are you disappointed? Was there someone else that you thought, would be a better choice? I think the balance of both of them together, Sandy, will complement one another. And I think that's what they were looking at.
Well, I'm sure they looked at a lot of things, including I'm sure they took lots of focus group analysis, lots of polling. These decisions are made scientifically. At least I'm sure the Democratic decision was made scientifically. I'm not confident that Donald Trump is patient enough for that process. But this is interesting. It's a wake up call. I was. Go ahead.
All right, 844-967-2789 is the number. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show. It's Tuesday. That means Tuesdays, and he's back. Sandy Williams is in the studio,
back from the heat,
or bringing the heat. What?
Yeah.
Right on.
This little pig went to market where they buy and sell the stocks. This little pig came home again with a system full of shocks. I don't understand their language, don't know what it's all about. For a bull buys up and the bear sells down and the broker sells you out. And here is the song they sing the whole day long. Oh, the market's not so good today, your stocks look kinda sick. In fact, they all drop down a point each time the tickers tick.
All right, welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. You can text us at that same number. It's Tuesday. That means Tuesday is my co-host, Sandy Williams. And Sandy, the music.
Well, the music today is about money, okay? Because there's been lots of talk about yesterday and the hiccup, at least, that the stock market had yesterday. I think the morning futures sales this morning look like there's going to be some level of recovery. But, there's been this long-term fascination with the stock market. That song goes back to 1929. And the collapse of the market back then. But this is an interesting time. I personally think that the hysteria about the situation yesterday was the media playing its typical role of Chicken Little, the sky is falling. And because when you scream, the sky is falling, people pay attention, even if it's not, in fact, what's happening. And it didn't happen to Chicken Little, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen in this circumstance either. There were there are plenty of reasons why there would be some significant adjustments in the stock market called volatility. And one of them is in the summer, and trading levels in the summer are very thin. Not that many people participate in the stock market. There's lots of vacation. And so when you don't have lots of people on the sell side, it doesn't take much on the buy side to, or vice versa, to affect the volatility of the market. And the summer market is typically more volatile.
Well, Sandy, you're an economist, and those of us who, may only have our 401ks and some other things in the market don't really know.
Well, look, also, let me just say that an awful lot of the hysteria that we've been listening to is politically driven. Donald Trump wants nothing more than for there to be a major financial hiccup. As far as he's concerned, a financial disaster would be great, okay? It's a pretty unselfish view, don't you think? But from the Republican side, they jumped on this immediately because they wanted to point out, number one, I suppose they want their base. Their base are the people who own lots of stock, right? Because the number of the 401ks, people who own 401k stock really aren't active in the market, don't understand the market. They've put their money in the hands of somebody else. And actually, the average size of the 401k in this country is much too small. It's not enough to sustain the retirements that were planned to be sustained by 401ks. But by talking about 401ks, it's a way to try to grab the attention of Tom, Dick, and Mary about something that actually really matters to the elite, the financial elite in this country, the people who are really quite wealthy. And so the Republicans want nothing more than for there to be not just a hiccup, but a major slide. And that's the reason why we're hearing so much about it, the one-day trade. We'll find out by day after tomorrow, we'll find out just how big a deal this was in terms of it being a major trend or a hiccup. And the notion that there's a significant recovery today obviously suggests something much more like a hiccup.
Well, Sandy, the things I've been reading about it is Japan is going through this suffering. Other nations are suffering because of what happened here in the United States.
Well, Japan's suffering. They've had a 25-year level of slow growth, okay? And China is in a period of potentially kind of stagnant growth, and all the political talk about partitioning China off from our economy is kind of frightening to Wall Street, okay? Because China is an area of growth. The United States, the job report that came out just a couple of days ago still showed job growth. It just wasn't the surprising large job growth we've had quarter after quarter, month after month during the Biden years. And so we still have job growth, but the rest of the world, particularly some of the growth areas of the world like China, suggests that there could be some frailty, but it's not a surprise. It's not the news of yesterday, okay? This is just the stock market trying to come to grips with what are the best options available to those with all the investment capital. And there's the financial market that deals with the United States is awash in financial capital, okay? There's just a lot of money looking for places to invest. And the notion that they're going to bail out of the stock market and move elsewhere is pretty unlikely.
So the Republicans are using the verbiage crash.
But yeah, it was, first of all, it didn't reach crash. You want to go to crash, go to 2008. The Republicans were good at making a crash, okay? I mean, I'm being a bit facetious there. That crash and the housing mortgage bubble that happened there had built up over a number of years, although most of those years were under the Bush administration. But that was an event that had a cause, okay, and had a clear, palpable cause, and the financial market understood what the cause was, which was this financial bubble that was driven by these mortgage-backed securities. That isn't the circumstance in yesterday's event. Yesterday's event could have been could have been like the hiccup that occurred several years ago when the algorithms of many, many hedge fund quant trading, the automatic trades that occurred because of mathematical algorithms that were driven by these high-speed traders all hit the same sign at the same time. And so when the sign said stop, they all stopped, okay? And it caused a major hiccup that caused the stock market to close. When the stock market closes, that's a crash, okay? We didn't have that.
Sandy, they've been pushing to cool down the economy for how many years now? We've got to cool the economy. We've got to cool the economy. We've got to cool the economy. They've done all that they can, the feds, to cool the economy. But how much of the economy is the American people?
Well, one of the things is that all this talk about the stock market doesn't, it's Tom, Dick, and Mary, their budget and the problems they face have nothing to do with the stock market going up or down. Their main source of wealth that they could generate that might be intergenerational is the house, okay?
Right.
And so the stock market is maybe a thermometer that people like using, and politicians like using it when it goes up. I suppose they also like using it if they're on the other side when it goes down. But so far, this is an event, okay? It's an interesting event from the standpoint of the financial community. No one in the financial community, I think, is dealing with this as if it were a crash. And, with respect to what the Fed is doing, the Fed is most likely to cut interest rates very soon. They're going to start stimulating the economy. They have that tool in their tool bag because of the interest rate is there to cut, okay? There was during the Trump years, they got, the interest rates were at the bottom. The tool wasn't in the toolbox.
All right, hold the thought, Sandy. 844-967-2789 is the number. It's Tuesday. That means Tuesdays is my co-host Sandy Williams and you on the Earl Ingram Show.
I bought an elevator stock and thought that I'd done well. Then the little bears all ran downstairs and rang the basement bell. And here is the song I heard the whole day long. Oh, the market's not so good today. Your stocks look kinda sick. In fact, they all dropped down to pointy.
On a warm summer's evening, on a train bound for nowhere, I met up with a gambler. We were both too tired to sleep, so we took turns staring out the window at the darkness. The boredom overtook us, and he began to speak. He said, "Son, I made my life out of reading people's faces and knowing what the cards were by the way they held their eyes. So if you don't mind me saying, I can see you're out of aces. For a taste of your whiskey, I'll give you some advice." So I handed him my bottle, and he drank down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette and asked me for a light. And the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. Said, "If you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to
All
go."
right, welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. It's Tuesday. That means Tuesdays. My co-host Sandy Williams and Sandy the Music.
Well, the music is about money and the stock market, and of course, you got to know when to hold them, and you got to know when to sell them, right?
Well,
so that's what the stock market's all
Well,
about.
guess what? We've got a renowned economist on the line who has something to say. I think that's CJ. Okay. Good morning to you, CJ. Your thoughts?
Well, I'm far from a world-renowned economist, but I can read what's coming. Thank you for taking my call, Earl and Sandy. As I listen to you guys talk about it, by the way, my challenge still stands, Sandy. Debate you anytime, anywhere.
Well, let's deal with the question.
Okay, here's
of the day.
where we'll do it. Okay, corral. Okay.
What do you have for today, CJ?
Well, under the Harris-Biden administration, Tom, Dick, and Mary, as Sandy so affectionately speaks about, can't afford a house today. Can't afford heat, groceries, gas. We're walking into a recession. You know what caused the Kamala crash yesterday, Sandy? Unemployment went up for the fourth month in a row. you don't think that it's a big deal.
Hey, CJ,
Well,
you said
we're
you're not a
walking into a
you said you're not a renowned economist. Sandy is an economist.
Well,
but go ahead.
actually, Kamala Crash. The talking notes have that spelled with a K, don't they? Kamala, and then crashes with a K as well, right?
Well, that's the way I spell it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you aren't the first one.
I don't know how anybody else does, but this VP pick, boy, just goes to show you that her anti-Semitism is alive and well. She
Oh, my
Oh.
goodness.
to go to Netanyahu's Congress. Well, Waltz is
Hey,
certainly
CJ.
a
Hey, CJ.
win for
You're
open
all
borders
over CJ.
and
You're all
socialism.
over the map, man. You want to talk about the crash of the stock market and
Isn't
Sandy.
it all over the map?
Well, yes, it is.
I'm talking about
let's
the
talk about.
VP pick.
Okay, no,
right?
you started
Well,
with the crash of the
Look,
economy. Let's deal with that.
I think he's finished his talk. He's
Yeah.
But the notion that the economy has had these issues or has any issues is going to be the subject of the campaign. But you can't paint with that brush. You have to really look at causes. Okay, you can look at coincidences, or you can look at causes. You also have to look at outcomes and be honest about what the actual results are. What is the level of inflation that was experienced in the grocery stores? It's not 50% or 40%, as was suggested by Donald Trump. It's much lower. Okay, and the same is true of all of the notion. Now the housing market depends on whether you own a house or are selling a house. But in spite of the fact that you say that houses can't be acquired, the housing market keeps setting records for housing prices, okay? And that isn't the result of inflation. That's the result of shortages in housing. It's also the result of an increase in wealth by the people who have wealth. And it's that wealth increase and the ability of people then to spend more on houses that's having a great deal to do with the impact on the price of housing. And mortgage rates are coming down, okay? Mortgage rates went up, they're coming down. And interest rates are likely to get cut. And you would like there to be a recession, but we don't have a recession. We don't have anything like the indices that suggest that we're on the eve of a recession.
Let me ask you, Sandy. We had 9% inflation, and certainly.
Well, let's talk about the world's level of inflation, because Joe Biden didn't regulate the economies of Britain and of the rest of Europe and of the rest of the world. And our level of inflation was actually lower than was experienced in much of the developed world. And the rate at which our inflation has diminished has been at a more rapid clip than the level of inflation that diminished in the rest of the world. Much of the basis for the inflation was originally driven by the price of oil and gas, which had a lot to do with an invasion by Russia into Ukraine and the response and the sanctioning response of Western Europe and the United States associated with the price of oil and gas. So, and what does drive inflation can be the increase in the amount of money in the economy, and the tax cut during the Trump administration was, any economist would tell you, was an inflationary and a very substantial inflationary move. CJ wants to talk about inflation and worries about inflation. Donald Trump, the only policies he's talked about so far on the campaign trail that has gotten much attention is increasing tariffs, which is very inflationary, and further tax reductions, which would increase deficits, which is also very deflationary, very inflationary.
Well, the reason I was asking you before we go back to the phone lines about the inflation issue is, we know what it was recently at 9%. The fact that it's been pared down to where it is now in such I think, a short period of time, it's very difficult to get control over inflation. Is it? I mean, the policies that were rendered.
Well, it took a long time to get over it in the late 70s and 80s.
Right.
It took years, okay? And the inflationary psychology that had occurred at that time took Paul Volcker to use a major sledgehammer with respect to interest rates to try and quell inflation. This time it's been very effectively handled so far. And, if we don't have someone who comes into office who decides to pour gasoline on the fire again with more tax reductions and massive tariff increases, I think that the Fed, we've developed new tools. The Fed in particular has this thing called quantitative easing, which was essentially designed to deal with the recession that started in 2007, 2008, was a new tool. And it hasn't fully been tested. We don't really know when you start selling. Quantitative easing is when the government was buying up its own debt instruments and the debt instruments that were in the marketplace and essentially creating money for the economy in that fashion. But those debt instruments were then going to be resold into the marketplace at some point, which has the opposite effect. And so, the back end of that has been ongoing for a while now, and it's been part of the toolkit that's been used to quell inflation. But I would say that we've gone from having economic tools to regulate the economy that were very primitive into now having economic tools that are getting much less primitive. Okay, they're getting better at what they do, which is to try and regulate the economy in a manner to avoid undue volatility.
All right, let's go to Gary from Sussex. Good morning to you, Gary. You say what?
Hi, you guys. Pretty soon a dozen eggs will be like 11 eggs or 10 eggs. Because I was looking at some soda. I didn't even pay that much attention. I bought like an 8-pack of bottled soda of Coke. And instead of used to be 20 ounces, now it's 16.9. So that is keeping the prices down to the point of, like Sandy was saying, in your opinion, Sandy, I think it's inflation has gone up, and as far as food, more like in the area of 35 to 40, when you're saying 25, but I'm not going to argue that. But everything is smaller, box of cereal, everything else. Now, the other point that I want to make is, and I hope you don't cut me off, is how come Kamala Harris will not debate Trump on Fox? And
why should she?
So what do you think?
Why should she?
Well, no, look, here's the only point about that. I don't disagree that, but the parties negotiated a place to have the debate, okay, and it wasn't Fox News. And so then Donald Trump pulled the plug on the place that was agreed to with Joe Biden, and decided to make an announcement that was unilateral, saying, "Hey, we've reached an agreement. We're gonna do this on Fox News," when there had been no negotiation whatsoever. He's simply trying to back her into a corner to have the debate held in a place where it's home court, right? So I mean,
yeah, but.
Well, Gary,
that's the point, isn't it?
Look, Donald Trump and the Republicans are not in a position of power to tell the incumbent vice president and the Democrats where they should debate. They're not in a position of power. That's not how it works, Gary.
Well, no, you negotiate.
No, they don't have to negotiate.
Well, they undoubtedly are negotiating. Okay, I'm sure that there's ongoing discussions between, or could be. It takes two sides to negotiate. I'm not sure that the Trump administration even reached out to negotiate before they announced that they had a deal. There has been no news about that. He didn't suggest that there had been a negotiation.
No, he decided himself.
Yeah. So
okay,
but I think that. There'll be a debate. It'll happen, I'm sure. And we can find out what the parties were able to negotiate when we find out. One of the problems with sitting on the sidelines and discussing this is it's really just filling air. This is what the media makes the mistake of doing, which is for people to talk without being in a position to
Sandy,
affect the outcome.
I have to say it becomes irritating when we have people call and say, "Why doesn't she debate Donald Trump on Fox?" I mean,
well, the only thing that's concerning to me is we weren't talking about that.
I know,
okay? But I mean, we were trying to talk about
the economy,
other
those
issues.
things.
Yeah,
Gary?
what the economy is going to be like tomorrow, and the stock market. I think that the question of what's happened to groceries can be handled by looking at the facts and looking at what the CPI and the people who the Department of Labor that determines those kind of things can tell us about what actual inflation has been. And it is, the fact that when you go to the grocery store, you find out that things are more expensive, but they are commodities. One of the things that the current administration is doing is putting pressure on grocery store chains and others who are controlling the price, because there's no question that the prices went up, but they've been sticky coming down, and the cost of the commodities, the underlying commodities, has come down. And so there's a problem there, and it should take active antitrust activity, which I think is much more likely to occur in this Democratic administration.
So, Sandy, but they keep implying that this all happened because of policies of Joe Biden, the inflation, which you said was a global reality. And they totally dismiss the fact that we've done better in this nation with dealing with inflation than the other major countries.
I think it's just. This is politics, okay? You point at whatever happens that's coincidental in time with whoever is in office. But the opposition who wanted to talk about the great stock market under Donald Trump is going to have to realize that even with this reduction that's happened yesterday in the stock market has gone up more during Biden's administration than it went up during the Trump administration. And so,
all right, guys, hang on the phone lines. 844-967-2789 is the number. It's Tuesday. That means Tuesdays with my co-host Sandy Williams and you.
Know when to fold up, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting. When the dealing's done, you got to know when to hold. Know when to fold up, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting. When the dealing's done, you got to know.
Seems to be a single penny left for me. That's too bad. In my dreams, I have a plan. If I got me a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work at all. I'd fool around and have a ball.
All right. Welcome back to the Earl Ingram Show. As always, you can join us at 844-967-2789. Text us that same number. It's Tuesday. That means Tuesday. My co-host Sandy Williams, Sandy the Music.
Well, I think it speaks for itself. Yesterday was at least a big hiccup on Wall Street. Everyone was talking about it. And, we should be talking about the budgets of Tom, Dick, and Mary, and that song is about that.
All right, let's go to Luke. Luke, you got some breaking news.
Yeah, just want to let folks know, if you're just tuning in, we do have a vice presidential pick in for Vice President Kamala Harris. She announced, CNN and AP breaking this morning, the announcement coming later today, but Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has been picked as Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate. And the two will be in Western Wisconsin tomorrow. You're going to want to tune into Civic Media coverage between now and then. We will be on the ground covering the event, so you want to stay tuned. Download the Civic Media app, and you will never miss a beat of breaking news like Tim Walz being selected as the VP pick for the Democratic ticket.
All right, let's go to Mike from Kenosha. Thank you, Mike. You say what?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call as always. Hey, real quick. Any debate on Fox News, I think you have to put a little asterisk in it afterwards. The only media group that I know of that's been fined $780 million for lying to their constituents. To me, they're the least respected news source, news group around, and they should not be hosting anything. They should earn the right to televise debates. We, the people, need to start to expect performance, not beg for it. We should be demanding that these media groups have good conversations and good information, not be allowed to lie to us. But I wanted to get back to something here very quickly. So I do a lot of consulting. I teach people how to sell and market and do business plans, that kind of on the side. I'm retired. I do just to fill in time, and I love it. I really enjoy it. I keep a diary, and I just happened to pull up September 17th, 2021. And it was during COVID. I went to several local retailers in the Kenosha area. And I just wanted to ask them how they're doing, what's going on. And all of them said the same thing, Earl. They said that they have no inventory, that their supply chains have been broken or interrupted, and they can't sell anything until that is remedied. They're trying to make it up for service and trying to be creative to do some other things, but they can't do it without inventory. So I've heard that a lot. And what this is, and I wish we could talk about it more, it's really a failure of trickle-down economics again. When we're chasing after the lowest price and we're willing to give up our manufacturing industries in order to achieve the lowest price, of course, that always comes with consolidation and some other things. The net result is consolidation, and we, the peeps, end up paying much, much higher for these monopoly type of industries now. Just about every single industry that's relevant is dominated by a handful of players. So we need to take this conversation a little bit further than just at the surface level. And to me, recognizing that we made a big mistake with trickle down and buying into that stuff, disrupting and putting many industries at peril because of supply side what if you will. I will tell you that COVID, at least in my 66 years of living, knocked more businesses out of business than anything I can think of. So, it was a unique time. It had unique challenges, many challenges that we haven't seen before.
Well, Mike, one of the things that it did is much like that happened during World War II, is it because it knocked out inventories, it created a latent demand for all that stuff that wasn't being sold during that time period when you were talking about it. And after World War II, right, we had a problem with the potential problem with inflation too, pent up demand for things that weren't available and suddenly became available. And so most economists would say that much of the inflation that was experienced in the United States was the result of the pent up demand from the situation that occurred during the COVID period, some of which should be laid at the feet of the president who handled COVID so badly during that time period. But in any case, when COVID ended, there was a great deal of pent-up demand, which caused the demand side to bid up the prices of things.
Well, let me just add this one thing in there real quick. And you touched on it before. The prior president of the United States, instead of rallying and organizing a group of professionals that were good at it, he punted. He punted COVID to the states, for the governors to fend for themselves. He punted COVID in America for all of us to deal with on our own, instead of rallying and organizing and creating, a team to, be in front of the issues and to present, a plan forward. So then, again, we could talk about, what, American public, is going to be 2 months or 3 months before certain channels become fluid again. With being in front of the issue and aggressively taking these challenges on, we can overcome anything.
In fact,
we had a president that punted.
Hey, Mike, thank you very much for the call. Sandy, quickly.
Yeah, Gretchen Whitmer a couple of days ago did a very good job of discussing what it was like to be governor of Michigan during the period when the president was offering no guidance whatsoever and was punting to the states the job of finding the resources necessary to deal with the COVID that was going on in their state. You find the masks, you find the hospital, and have the states bidding against one another in order to achieve adequate responses. It was chaos. It was crazy, and the people who are voting ought to remember the haphazard, chaotic way that was handled.
Hey, Mike, great information as always. Almost forgotten. 844-967-2789. Guys, hang on. You're tuned into the Earl Ingram Show. It's Tuesday. That means Tuesdays with Sandy Williams.